Welcome to Build It with Jose. In this video, I'm gonna show you how to build a shaker door on the table saw. It's a door that's very durable, very popular, and very easy to make. And let's get it done. We're gonna start by getting our dimensions that we need. In this case, it's 14 inches wide by 28 inches high. This is gonna be the joinery that we're using for this door. We have a stile, which is the vertical, and then we have the rails, which are the horizontal. The rails have to be longer than the actual inside of the door because they have to go into the stile. First thing we're gonna do is we gotta make sure the lumber is straight and also that it's flat, because if it's warped or twist, it doesn't work for a door at all. So once we know that that's what we want, then we'll start ripping material. Now that we ripped all the material, we want to make sure that it's flat. Putting it on a flat surface is the best way to do it. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna cut it to size. We're going to cross cut them on the table saw. Normally, I would do it on a cut-off saw or chop saw or miter saw. But in this case, I want to show you how to build it with just one machine, which is a table saw. You always want to make sure it's a square. So what you do is you put it against the fence. You put it right there and make sure it's touching all the way across. Then you know it's a square. And it's also safer to do it with a miter gauge. Our door is 28 inches tall. Let's cut the two stiles. Remember, the stiles are the ones, the vertical ones, and the rails are the horizontal ones. So we'll come in here and measure. We'll measure it again, 28 and a 32nd. Now we're gonna cut another one, measure it, 28. Measure it again, right there. These are our stiles, the vertical ones. Now we need our rails here. Our overall door is 14 inches. We have our stiles of 2.5 inch. So that means that our rails would be 9 inches. We need to add an inch to the rails. These two rails, they need to be an inch longer because I want 1/2 inch of tongue. So we're gonna go ahead and cut them an inch longer than what it should be. 10 inches is gonna be my rails. Okay, right here we're gonna measure at 10 inches. Then we'll cross cut it. 1. Now we make sure they're the same size and they're slightly different right now. Therefore, I'm gonna trim it a little more, the bottom one. Now I have my stiles and my rails right here. And this rail is gonna go in 1/2 inch. Once we put them together, they're gonna go in 1/2 inch. Now we're gonna put the groove on all these parts here. So, and we're gonna do it with the table saw blade that we have right now. I always wanna use a scrap piece of wood. So this is gonna be our sample. I always write on it to make sure this is what I'm working with because I'll need it through the process. We're gonna move the fence close. The blade needs to go up 1/2 inch. Put a groove in the middle. Pretty good right there, it's 1/2 inch. But I'm gonna go 32nd deeper on that. I'm gonna leave it at 9/16. So that's one pass. But that's not enough to put our panel in because we need a 3/16 of an inch right there. I'm gonna grab a piece of 3/16 material to make sure it's gonna fit, and then we can start working on the real parts. This is what we're gonna use for the door. This material right here, it's maple. So, but because the door is paint grade, I can use different materials. I can use maple, or I can use poplar, or I can use any other materials. We're gonna set the blade so that it cuts a little bit on each side until I get my groove the right width. Right there, I already have the depth. But now I need to get the width for this panel right here. But I'll do it on this piece, on our sample piece, and then I can do it on my real parts. This was my first pass that I did, and obviously it's not wide enough, so we have to move the fence closer to the blade to start increasing the width. As you can see, I made it a little bit too wide, so I'm gonna use the other side. This is just a practice piece, that's why I like to use a practice piece. I'm gonna move the fence a little bit out. I'm back to 0 again. I was right in the middle. You keep trying it until you get it just right. That's why you don't use the piece that you're gonna work on. You need another 30 seconds right there. Let's see, and that's how I want it. Now I can run my pieces. And you wanna go slow so you don't get blowout or anything like that. There we have all 4 pieces right there. Now we're gonna cut this joint right here. We're gonna set up the blade down here, and then we're gonna start cleaning this out by raising the blade as we need it right here to get to the thickness of this, which should be about 1/4 of an inch. Now we're gonna use this piece again. So what I need to do here is I need to get this depth from here to here first. So I'm gonna play with this piece. So right now I'm gonna set my distance, which should be 1/2 inch. Sometimes you have to readjust it. And you also wanna have a little gap in here. You don't want it tight against the style. You want it to have like a hair of a gap, not all the way, because you wanna make sure these joints right here are tight. And I'll start low, and for that, we're gonna use the miter gauge again. Right now, I just want that, I'm gonna go back and forth. As you can see, that's how I clean my joint right there. We're getting closer now. Now I have to start checking my rails and make sure they fit. I'm still too thick right now. Now what I need to do, I need to make sure I have this height, this depth right here. Let's raise it up a little. Still too tight. Try it again. And that looks like it'll fit perfect right there. So let's do the real ones now. You can do multiple passes like that, and then you clean it going back and forth. Then you try it again, make sure it fits. Now we'll do the other side. Perfect. Now we do the second one. Try it first, make sure, perfect. A little bit of glue, and it's ready to go. Our next step is gonna be to cut our panel. And that panel needs to be 10 by 24. And you don't wanna raise the blade too much. You just wanna raise it about 1 inch or so. So we gotta rip it at 10 inches. Now we're gonna cross cut it. We're gonna cut it at 24 inches high because we have 28 inches total, but this panel is gonna go in 1/2 inch on top and 1/2 inch on the bottom. That's why it needs to be 24, so 4 inches less than the overall door. Now to cross cut it, I'll put my miter gauge right here, and then I'll set my fence for 24 inches. This is our panel right here. Now we go to the bench to do some sanding right now. I'm gonna be sanding the edges inside before I put it together. You don't want to sand too much because that would change the sizes of the width of the door. You just want to get rid of the mill mark. And the way to find out if you still have mill marks, because you can't see them right here. See, you can't really see them right there. But if you put them on the light, you go like this, then you can see if you're still missing the mill marks. So now we're gonna put it together. So what we need is some glue. So these are the clamps we're gonna use. So I put some glue, cover 100% of the joint right there, as you can see. Then you do that on both. And you can clean it afterwards with water. This is water-based glue, so you can clean it with water. As long as it doesn't dry, you don't let it dry, then you're good. Then you're also gonna put some right here on the stiles. So you put it in. Okay, now what we'll do is we'll put one rail right here, and you wanna make sure you line it up. You wanna put it as close as possible right there. So then you do the other side, then you slide the panel in. You want to make sure before you put it together that the panel is lower than the tongue right here. You got to make sure of that, otherwise the door is never going to assemble correctly. You're going to end up with a gap in there. So now we'll put this other style on here. Want to make sure that we're lined up right here. And if you have to tap it with a hammer, like right here. Okay, now we're gonna put the clamps, and then we'll make sure it's nice and flat. So you check all the joints, make sure everything is perfect. You see that those are the mill marks that I was talking about. Those will send them later. That's your shaker door right there, very simple. One machine. You notice I only used the table, so that was it. We waited about a half an hour for the door to dry. We're gonna sand it. It's ready to do the sanding. You see these little lines across? Well, when you do the sanding, that's what you're trying to get rid of. Now, in the joints, you want to make sure the joints are even and smooth. You have to do the motion like this. We're going to sand the edges outside. Now we're going to break the corners because they're super sharp. And when you try to finish something, the paint or the stain, in this case it would be paint, it doesn't stick to the sharp corners. Use like a 45-degree angle. And I'm gonna show you an easier way. Just a used sandpaper with a small block of wood. What you do is you wrap it around like this, and then you go at a 45 or so, like that, so that it's still square, but it's not sharp anymore. You don't need a whole lot, but you just need to go couple of passes back and forth. It's not sharp anymore. It won't cut you. Now we're gonna drill it for the hinges. We need to drill a 35mm hole. I have this jig that I use, but you can also do it without the jig. You can use the 35mm drill bit, and you can buy it at Home Depot or Lowe's or any hardware store. If you didn't have a jig, all you do is you do measure it right here. You could do it anything, let's say 4 inches or 4.5 inches, whatever it might be. And then you just set it 5mm from the edge, which is about 1/4 inch from the edge here. That's how much you want to have. You only have to do it about 1/2 inch. And that's how it's done right there. The depth of the drill is my guide for the depth. If I'm drilling freehand right here, I just make sure I'm even with the top of the drill bit, and that's my guide right there. The drill bit we use for the hinges right here for the holes. This is 35mm, but you can buy 1.25 inch as well. So now we're gonna do the hinges. These are our hinges right here that we're gonna use. These are 35mm Blum. This is a soft close hinge that we're gonna use in this door. So if you look at it closely, it's gonna soft close right there. And you can also turn it off. See that switch right there? So now I can close it. You hear that? And then now it's not a soft close, it's only self close. We're gonna put them on the door itself. Okay, we're gonna use 3/4 inch screws here. We need to put a piece of wood here straight across because I want to make sure these hinges are straight across there. Now we're gonna put the plates. and they just snap on like that. Go back in, and then it goes like that. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna hang the door that we made for this cabinet. So what I like to do is I put a piece of wood on the bottom here and a clamp. The plates, if you come closer, you'll see there's two little hooks. They hook against the edge of your cabinet. Then you put the first screw here, put the second one on the bottom. Now I put the rest of them. Now let's check the door, make sure it's flat against the cabinet. You see how it moves? So it's moving like that. I don't want that on my door. I come down here and move this hinge in. Then we try it again. See, it's still doing it. So I come to the top one and move it out a hair. You see how it's moving? See, if I do that, I move it a lot. If I do just a little bit, until I get it so that it's not moving anymore, it's perfect right there. This is how you make a shaker door.